Today on the Pro Talk podcast, you get to talk to or listen to one of the most interesting tennis pros I've ever known. Not only is he very interesting, he's also very talented and entertaining. Mr. Ryan Blake, welcome to the Pro Talk podcast. How are you?
Are we going to have people call in on this, Rob?
No, it's just a recording.
This.
We can.
We're taking callers. What's your studio set up right there? Do you have you got some engineers in the background, or you got like kids in boxes and stuff?
Yeah. It's a studio. It's a staff of one.
That's the best staff to have.
Yeah.
They're always on time.
Yep, exactly. I got nobody else to blame. So anyway, I'll get right to it. Not many players that I've known have one of these.
Where'd you find
I'll just keep this in front of me.
So did Amazon, they sell out of those? Those are hard to get.
And I bought a bunch of, actually they're all over the wall. So I feel like I'm talking to you.
So you're doing the podcast from your toilet then, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
My porcelain library. Exactly. Yeah. So, awesome. All right. Quick background of you. I met you back in 1992. I'd heard your name, but it was, I left the corporate world, started playing, the first professional tournament I played was the grass court tournament down in Sandestin back in 1992. I think you were traveling the circuit with Pete Peterson. It looked like you were living in his Honda Accord. I remember seeing a racket stringer in the car, and you look like Axl Rose. The hair was long, the bandana was kicking.
So that was destined. Yeah. Speaking of, so I was, Pete Peterson. God. So Pete well, right?
Yeah.
He's got a good thing. In fact, I'm wearing his hat right now. He's doing this thing called Love the Battle.
Okay.
And I tell you, he would be a great guy to talk to right now. He's got this book and this program. It's tennis related, a lot of motivational things. I've read his book. I subscribe to it. He's in Boise, Idaho, Rob. And I'm telling you, it's really cool stuff. So, but we can get back to me. It's more important to talk about me than Pete, I think. But
okay,
just jot that down on the toilet paper you got right next to you.
We'll have you call in when he's on.
Huh?
We'll have you call in when he's on.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And so I remember you were playing the satellites, and I want to get to some of your background here that some people might not know about, but I want to tell you, congratulations. I'm not sure we've talked since 2018. I can't believe it's been that long. I've seen you a couple times, but congratulations on being in the Hall of Fame, Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
And
I know we haven't talked since then because I think, foot faulted twice and I called you on it. Is that the reason why we haven't talked since then?
Yeah.
Well, you were starting from the service line, I think.
Well, I got to the net fast though, didn't I?
You were there. You were there.
So if you were going to foot fault, I'm foot faulting. It was even. There you go. But you were a top junior player in the state and in the South. I remember you played Junior Davis Cup with our buddy Chris King. You were my pro league captain. You drafted me in the inaugural pro league. That was fun. Now you grew up playing baseball, football, basketball. When did you start playing tennis? What age?
So I started, basketball was probably my first love, because of my father, who was in the sport, but, I love basketball. But then around 10, 11, my parents were starting to play tennis, and we didn't have a pool in our in our neighborhood. So they joined Rivermont Country Club, so we'd have a pool to go to, and I'd watch them play, and I decided to get into it. Larry Schnall and Bill Kopecky were the pros at the time, and that's how I got into it. And so I would play that probably during the summers. I'm sure I played some Alta between, football, basketball, and baseball. I did play 2 seasons of soccer. Loving this World Cup right now. I don't know if you're a soccer fan, but man, this is a lot of fun this month.
I played a year of soccer, and I really appreciate it. I love watching the warm-ups. I'm just a fundamental geek. I just love the way they handle the ball. It's pretty amazing.
You like when they're doing stretching? Yeah, you told me you're really good at working out groin stretches and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, do your yoga too.
Okay, gotcha.
Here we go. I warned you guys at home.
What?
No. All right. when you were playing all these sports, did you ever get a trophy for anything besides first or second place?
I don't remember. Don't I have no idea.
I mean, there's
You
no
know,
closet
I
full there of participation trophies. You don't have a closet full of participation trophies?
participation trophies.
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
no idea.
Okay. Well, good. No, they weren't very significant anyway. Then I got you.
Okay.
I, how about your worst defeat in any sport? What was your worst memory as a kid in sports?
Worst defeat. Well, I think any. Okay, so well, let's talk tennis, right? Like
Okay.
tennis, we're an unusual sport, right? In most sports, you'll have I think when you're looking at success and trying to find success, you're trying to start with establishing short-term goals, whether it's for yourself or your team. And so for tennis, I think when I started out struggling at the beginning is, I think everybody wants to be the best in the world, be number one. And then when you realize you start having short-term goals, right? Qualifying for a professional tournament. Then after that, it would be first round, then second round, then quarterfinal semis and winning a professional tournament. So any loss, there's only one person during that week out of 64, 32, or 128 people, so any defeat is always bad. I think this just popped into my head. I was on the circuit. I was really good at understanding the map of the circuit. For me, with no money, we're trying to find places that our low ranking could get us into the main draw or even sometimes qualifying. And I'm a stat boy, and I'd done all these metrics on back in the 90s of where the hard tournaments were the year before and then the weak ones the year before. So if I ended up in a difficult tournament. So I had all this mapped out. And I only told a few of my close friends because I needed someone to travel with too about this. So I would take off and I'd go, let's go to India. Let's go to Belgium. They were tough the year before, but I'd find it out. So I had this all mapped out. And then one year I had everything run perfect and I knew I was going to get into the French Open. And my parents had come over and they were going there anyway to see. And then my girlfriend at the time flew over. I was really pumped. And man, when I showed up at sign-in, man, there was a lot of people there. My ranking was pretty good at the time. I mean, pretty much that I felt that I was going to be secure in getting in. And with about 5 minutes to go to sign in, I was still in, but I was like three in. So if there was four people that were higher ranked than me that showed up, they would have got in before me. So I'm out there practicing. I remember I was practicing next to Todd Martin, and all of a sudden this van pulled up, and literally with like a minute to go, it was just like you'd see in the movies. They opened up the door, and all these players came out, and they all looked like they were from South America. And I went, crap, I
Yeah.
said, dang, that's it. And went in there, and I was out, And I was like, crap. And that was really one of my biggest disappointments. And because I really was secure. I had all my support team that was going to be there. So as a result, I made another bad move. So I couldn't play. So right after the French is all the grass court build up tournaments. And I think it was Binghamton. I didn't think I was going to get into Binghamton and then Wimbledon qualifying because it was so tight. But I was thinking, you know what? Maybe people are going to think the same thing and then not go to Wimbledon. I said, no, I need to go back to America and play some hard court challengers in like Louisiana or something like that.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I got on a plane, actually went over the river, stayed with Jake Martin's mom in Brighton, took a train and this is in 92, I think, first Gulf War, and went home. And when I got home, I got a notice. I don't know how, probably a fax at the time, because we didn't have the interwebs, and that I had not only gotten into Binghamton into the qualifying, I was in the main draw, and so I had to cancel. And I was like, I was in the main draw because a reverse. So that was a big disappointment because I was thinking, okay, I feared it. Okay. I didn't take the chance. I could have done it. It would have been there. Now I'm going to have to grind over here. I should have taken that opportunity. I mean, it still was a choice, but I could have been in there. I was playing good tennis. I could have been in the qualies for Wimbledon, which I did. I came back the next year and did it. But that was kind of a big disappointment, trying to
Yeah.
pick. And then after that, I said, you know what? Everything is sort of meant to be, right? You put all the cards on the table and let them fall where they may. I was never trying to seek out the weakest tournament. I was never trying to get the best draw. And one of my philosophies is I've never really looked to see who I'm going to play two rounds ahead of me, because I didn't want that. And all my greatest results that I've had were the toughest appointments, or toughest opponents, guys that had the highest rankings or matched up differently. And if you just had that mindset and not worry about the end game or the results, it let your mind at ease and you could compete to the maximum of your ability.
Wow, that's tough. So it wasn't like you could just jump on the Concorde and get back over there, huh?
No, we took whatever the ferry was. It was I forgot what they call it. I had to go, take a bus to France, somewhere at the end of France, and then you took that, whatever the wind boat thingy, over there, and then you took another boat back to, and then another bus back to Brighton. Yeah,
Yeah.
there were some long, fun trips there. You had a lot of time to yourself to think.
Well, it's interesting you said that, because back then there were no cell phones to occupy your time. So you lose, you train, you got all this time in between. Can you tell us a story about playing a match in El Salvador and what was going on outside?
Oh, El Salvador. Well, you talk about adversity. I'm a big believer in Murphy's Law. You always try to prepare yourself. If something go wrong, it's going to go wrong, and learn how to adapt that. And El Salvador was playing a circuit in Central America. I just got to my first finals in Costa Rica, riding pretty high. And then we went to El Salvador. And El Salvador at the time, we were staying at a nice hotel at the time. It was an old Sheraton, had a west wing, and then it had an east wing, but the west wing was not open at the time, and we were not allowed to go over there. But, it was a nice hotel, had a pool and all that, and the stadium was right across the street, so it was very convenient. You had your practice courts right there, you had good food. You still had sort of that third world where the electricity issues and stuff would you'd be sitting there, electricity would go off and at times, but you kind of expected those things. And so I think it was after my quarterfinal match, we went back, and my doubles partner, this 6'7" German, and I were hanging out at the restaurant, and we had a couple other people around. The lights went out and we're waiting for it to get back on. Usually took 30 minutes or so. And all of a sudden, the manager came down and he says, "Guys, Ryan, I know you're playing tomorrow, but I'm going to ask you if you just go back to your rooms." And I said, "Well, sure. Okay. This is weird." And, my German doubles partner, he's a little nervous. He was a big puppy dog, but, he was always nervous about stuff. So anyway, we walked up and got on our elevator, got to the fifth floor. Fifth floor was where all the players were. And as I got out, all the doors of all the rooms were open, as if it was a dorm room, and people were moving in and out. And when they saw me, they said, "Hey, Ryan, come over here. You got to check this out." And I went over to the balcony and went outside in the balcony, and he said, "Check it out." And about 3 miles, just kind of at an angle, was a mountain that was completely on fire. Now, 3 miles away is not that far in terms of a mountain. So, we were sitting there going, "Okay, why is it on fire?" And then the guy brought me into his room. He just said, "Well, this is what's happening." And at that time we heard helicopters, kind of coming over the hotel. And it was like, okay, this is interesting. And there was about 5 or 6 of them. And then all of a sudden it illuminated. They just started firing whatever they had in there, tracer bullets and missiles and whatever they would have on a Black Hawk or whatever, into the mountain. And then it just erupted in a war. So when we're sitting here, we're out on the balcony watching a war because we, had the American-backed army with the El Salvador government, and I don't know the whole relationship of what's going on. Then you had some rebels, right? So we're watching a war. And all these tanks were going down right in the neighborhoods near the Sheridan and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, we're not going to get hurt. Something's going on. So we're sitting out on the balcony watching the war when all of a sudden this sound comes by my face and just went, shh, and I felt the wind and I jumped back into the room. And as I looked up, it was the manager who spoke like 5 different languages and knew my name. He says, Ryan, he said, that was a good move. He said, those are called tracer bullets. And when they come end over end, they'll rip out a tree. And I'll never forget that. And I go,
Whoa.
Okay, so stay inside. Is that a good idea? So we went back. I took my German buddy. We went down to the basement and they had a bar. I guess that was open. And he was nervous as crap. So he was just drinking beers, no, just, I need heavier beer. And I was like, all right, well, we'll just hang out here for a little bit.
Yeah.
But there was a couple Americans that were actually outside and they were trying to get back into the hotel. But I mean, you had tanks, everything. Well, the manager came down the bar. He goes, Ryan, everything's good. I want you to take you to the presidential suite. We've got some dignitaries up there. You'll feel safe and secure. I said, fine, that sounds great. We got up to really the top floor that literally had an angle that looked at the neighborhood or the city and the mountain, right? Like, so we're literally sitting on a couch, having a beer, popcorn. My German doubles partner is getting drunk, and I'm just sitting there because I got to get, I'm supposed to play my semifinals match, tomorrow. And I'm sitting there watching the match and, watching the war. And, I decided to have a beer and we're just sitting there. And then all of a sudden we see this orange and blue bomb, whatever, come straight at the window. And it just kind of fizzled out and blew up right underneath the hotel. And we went back in our sofa and I said, to hell with this. I went back into my room, which was further back in the hotel. And somehow I got a call out to my mentor, it was my sponsor, a guy named Jim Hayes. And I called him up and I said, hey, Jim, I said, I want you to listen to this. And I opened up my balcony door and I put out that old receiver and I said, hey, can you hear that? And all you hear was like machine guns and stuff like that. I said, it's a war. I said, you hear that? I'm in the middle of a war. And he waited a little bit and he goes, well, Ryan, are you going to have your match tomorrow? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, are you ready for that match tomorrow? And I said, well, I don't know that either. And he goes, do you think your opponent is ready for that match? And I said, copy that, coach. So I prepared myself that night. I said, hey, let's expect that match to be there. Be ready. Put that out of the way. And the next morning, woke up, everything was normal, right? They had more security around the hotel, and they had those mirrors to go under every car, but escorted across the street. Got to the stadium, packed house, semifinal match. Umpire was about to, flip the coin, see who's going to serve and receive or defer. But I looked into his eyes, and I knew right then and there that he knew that I wanted that match more. And I made my second consecutive professional singles final because of that, just being mentally prepared and trying to get through that adversity. Yeah.
So it kind of puts in perspective when people say the noise around the courts here in Atlanta or Nashville where you are distracted me, puts it into perspective, just a bomb flying above.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's things that you can't train for or prepare for. I think mentally you try to, for me, there's going to be surprising things and shocking things as well. It's just how you adapt, overcome, and those things that help. And there's going to be times when you can't do it. And that just happened to be, and I've always been more of at times a focused player and someone that would give, just fight till the end. But, when you have a war, well, here's another story. So there was a El Salvador tennis player. He was very, very good. He was high ranked. and he was playing with a former top 60 Argentine player in dubs. And the El Salvador player was hosting this Argentine player. So when he went to the airport, when the Argentine player landed in the El Salvador airport, he was picked up by this Salvadoran driver, right? And there's about a 30-minute trip from the airport to the hotel. And on that strip, he noticed that the driver was a little bit nervous on the ride. And it's kind of an abandoned ride. I mean, there's not much around this 4-lane highway, right? There's no gas stations so much, just kind of a bunch of woods and jungle and stuff. And he noticed that the driver kept his left hand underneath to the left near the door handle, and he was driving with his right hand, right? So he's driving around, and then the player noticed outside there was a tank to the right. Good guys, right? And all of a sudden it started turning and pointing the gun towards them, and then went around, and then it started shooting across the highway in front of them to, these woods. And then those woods erupted because the rebels were over there. So they were in the middle of crossfire. Their driver, he's told me, had a hidden door, took out a machine gun and started firing in the woods. And so this Argentine player said he hit the ground, soiled himself, and then he went to his tennis partner's home in El Salvador, and he wasn't the same. He was not the same the rest. This was the second tournament of the fourth. And basically, he spent the rest of the tournament with 2 rackets in a Kroger plastic bag, and he had a towel, and that's how he played the rest of the tournament, because he was in trauma. He was in the middle of crossfire and all this stuff,
Those things that make you tougher, right?
I don't know if it makes you tough and make you not want to go to El Salvador, that's for sure.
Smokes. Well, I don't think there's many tournaments there these days anyway. So what are the things that you did when you were in Spain in between, which I'm not sure if this was in your mind to do this, but you started scouting basketball players, and your dad was NBA super scout Marty Blake. Not sure if many people know, but he was in one of my favorite movies.
Blue Chips, you got it. Oh, that's awesome.
On DVD, I'll watch this.
He's still getting residuals,
know? It's funny you said that, because I said something to your dad at the Country Club of Roswell during the Pro League. I said, "Hey, Mr. Blake," I said, "I enjoyed you in Blue Chips," and he chuckled. I'm not sure what year this was, but he said, "Hey, they're still sending me checks."
Yeah. You imagine what Nick Nolte is getting,
Yeah. Yeah. So you started scouting as you were in between tournaments. Is that correct?
Yeah. I started scouting when I was a teenager, really. I was lucky. I got to hang around. I was ball boying for Dr. J in the ABA, 5, 6 years old.
Wow.
I was telling a buddy of mine up here I ride motorcycles with, just so I could shoot baskets and stuff and hang out with my dad. And then I started traveling 16, 17 years old. I got to hang around with like Gene Tremolo and Jerry West and all these just characters and just unbelievable minds, And I was very much an introvert, so I would just sit there and, just listen to them. And I learned so much, They had asked me a question and they kid with me. But then I got more confidence to ask them questions, and I was playing basketball at the time. So when I was in Europe and not doing well, not going deep into tournaments and stuff like that, a lot of them I was staying with connections through my dad, or I'd go watch basketball. I befriended a really, really good player in Murcia. I was staying with him, professional player. He was actually from Argentina. And so I've spent a lot of time watching a lot of basketball over there. And then as the more I spent over there, I realized these players are good, pro material. So as a result, in the early 90s, I got my father, I said, "Here, we need to start getting this information out to all our NBA teams," even though I wasn't working for them. And I developed the thing where we could get scheduling all these tournaments and stuff like that. Now, my dad was the first GM to ever draft international players with Manuel Raga and Dino Medellin. Dino Medellin is in the FIBA Hall of Fame and our own Hall of Fame. Probably the best European player ever, and so was Manuel Raga. But they never came over to play for the Hawks when my dad was. But once we started getting that information out there, to the NBA teams. And as the sport became more popular because they had access to watching more games, I really truly believe that was a big, important factor of making the game more popular, which gave teams more confidence in bringing international players over. And then it just blossomed after that.
Very cool. Well, I know it. I remember seeing you scout in person, but I didn't talk to you. You walked right past me over at Life College. It was the summer league. First year, Larry Bird was with the Pacers, and I was in line with all the autograph. Me and a bunch of 12-year-olds, and Larry signed my shirt and signed my book, and you had walked past me as I'm watching Ron Mercer and a couple of the Celtics.
Yeah.
I think Chauncey Billups was our second draft choice that year, but
Yeah.
Larry's over there and you're over there, man. You were writing the whole time, man. I was like, these scouts are busy.
Well, I actually do caricatures of players' calves and tattoos. I actually don't write notes.
All right.
And then sometimes I try to do sort of like Japanese letters. I'm trying to it's still to this day, trying to figure out how to spell the
Okay.
in Japanese. Yeah.
All right. I have to tell everybody that you had one career victory over Patrick Rafter. Where did you beat Rafter?
So I do have a disclaimer to that, a little asterisk there. I did call my own lines. Very proud of it. He was 13 years old, and I stole some of his candy out of his bag because he used that and tried to get it in the third set so he could have more energy.
Okay.
No, it was on synthetic grass. Is that how you say it? Synthetic grass or
Synthetic. Is that the
artificial
one
grass?
with the sand in the mixture?
Yeah,
Like
the sand. But they
on
would
the
take
court?
the sand. They took all the sand off of it, which made it equal because you can't make a court like that equal. If you have
Yeah.
more sand on one side than
Yeah.
the other court, it
Right.
just plays different. So they took all the sand off. So it was basically, I don't know, like a carpet. All right. Yeah. So I beat him in the last round of qualifying there. I think he was probably 17 at the time, but I did travel with Pat. I mean, he's just a great, at the time, you'd say great kid. He was a great young man. He had a lot of brothers, a lot of support. And we were traveling with Mark and Scott Draper. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
those guys. And just some good old Aussies. Because I don't think, at the time I think it was the first year, second year I was living down in Australia. Just the great people. And I think it was in Macon. We were staying at a house together. And Pat wanted to quit tennis. I was like, you're 18 years old or 17. I don't remember how old he was,
Wow.
And Mark Draper's over there on this grand piano and he's playing this like, Beethoven stuff. And it was just surreal. And I'm flipping 26 and I'm in Macon, Georgia. Okay. You want to quit tennis? I'm like, no. I said, don't do that. I
Yeah.
said, you're kind of good. Okay. Your worst loss is me. And I got to call my own line. So, take that. So, yeah, but, and then, of course, I think after that, he just killed it. I think it was his brother that ended up coaching him and we got to reconnect. I remember, I think it was at the AT&T. He came in to play that clay court tournament,
Yeah.
what was it? And he showed up. I think his brother was there. And then I ended up being the pseudo coach of Andrew Ely. Do you remember Andrew Ely who won the tournament that one year?
No, I don't.
Andrew Ely was this Australian that I met when he was 15 years old in Australia. He was playing with one of those Wilson profiles. It was that thick
Yeah.
racket.
Uh-huh.
He was 15 years old, just crushing it. But he got about top 30 in the world.
Wow.
I had one of those overbearing fathers, or just he didn't have much of life. So when I met up with him, and I was done with tennis, right? This is like 2001 or something like that. I don't even think I played the wild card challenge at that time. So
Yeah.
Andrew Ely was there, and he goes, "Hey, will you be my coach for the week?" I said, "Sure." I said, "We'll do that." And Pat, Pat maybe just showed up and lost first round. I think he had probably appearance money and,
Right.
is getting out of there to start the hardcore season or something like that. I
Yeah.
didn't get to talk to Pat that long. Just great dude. And, but with Andrew Ely, like his dad wasn't there. He didn't have any of his whatever. He was on his own. And we just had the best time that week. He
Nice.
probably never laughed before that week. And I just made everything fun. I'd hit with him, work out. I wouldn't tell him anything because he would just go out, run around his backhand, just crush forehands, which is basically
Yeah.
what he needed to do. But he had so much fun that week, he won the tournament. He won the tournament and walked off, gave me a hug, and he said, "This has really been the best week of tennis because I just
Nice.
didn't have to think about things that I didn't enjoy, and I enjoyed everything." you know,
There
about
you
the
go.
week. And it was fun, because I
Yeah.
took all the pressure. I don't say all that. I helped him alleviate all the pressure for that week. And the
Yeah.
kid looked like he looked like a Russian sniper. He was about 5'10", 5'9", and, grew up from Romanian parents. And he just, you could tell he just like, I need a release. I
Yeah.
need that fun. And
Right.
we just hung out and did stuff that you normally didn't do. And then we talked about that too. When I was on the circuit, and I told Andrew this too. I traveled with Pete, Jake Martin, a bunch of other people. We have a group, and I'd bring them together, and I would tell them, I say, okay, tennis consumes us. Let's make this a team. So if Chuck's going over there and he's got to play so and so, let's have someone scout this other guy, help him out, and Pete, and do the same thing. And I said, but when we go out to eat together, let's make sure for at least the first hour we don't talk about tennis. Let's whatever we do, don't talk about tennis. Let's try to find something else so we are not always stifling ourselves and
Mm.
and choking on tennis so
Sure.
much, just consuming, and learn to enjoy and compartmentalize that and separate that because it can be overbearing mentally and physically.
That's great. That's the old Aussie team concept, right?
I don't know. That's just what I wanted to do, and it was great too. I mean, I remember, that I got a 630 on my SAT and I got a scholarship, and both my siblings are academic doctors. And I'm not as smart as them, but the one thing I am good at besides math is statistics, and those comes naturally. And having a background of scouting, I developed back in the early 90s a scouting system of charting. And I started charting my opponents when I had the opportunity to. And it was great. And I would chart them. I had three separate things, but the most important is where their serves were going to be going. I would chart the first and second serve so I could go back and look at it. So when I know it was at a break point or a tight point on either deuce or ad, I knew where it was going. And I remember I was playing the New Haven Pro Tournament, and I was in the last round of qualifying. I had to play my good buddy Royce Deppy, who was higher ranked than I was, and I had an opportunity to watch him play. And I charted both sets, and I beat him 4-5, I think it was. And it came down to knowing at that 30-40 point or that 15-40 point where that serve was going. So I had that little bit of edge. I mean, the points between us were probably maybe 3 or 4 points the whole match. But
Hmm.
those 2 points that I got on those break points were so important where I knew where they were going. As a result, that's why in basketball and probably every other sport there is, that if you can get that statistic, and I'm sure I know I work for an advanced analytical startup company, and we developed 115,000 actual data points, more than anybody else did, and they're all valuable. Tennis, that's got to be valuable too when you're in not just serves, but even returns and stuff like that. And when we go out and play, like Rob, like I haven't seen you play. I can't even remember what your game is like. No offense, but I don't even know what my game is right now, right? But if I go out and there start playing you, I have no archive of anything right now, memory wise or on paper. So we're going to have our own instincts of what we're trying to figure out during a match. Could be slices, high backhands, and stuff like that. I remember Pete Peterson. Here's a good story too. Pete Peterson. We were in India, and Pete Peterson was playing this guy from Hungary. His name was Mark Markov, and this guy from the ground was a beast. And he was playing him in I think it was a qualifying or something. And I had practiced with Mark, and Mark was just toying with me the whole time. I was like, "Good Lord," And I think Pete went out and beat him, and I was like, holy crap. I said, Pete, how did you beat him? He goes, oh, he started smoking me the first 3 games. And then I hit a miss hit, and it was a high, heavy ball. And he just looked odd running to the ball and timing it. And so I just started throwing up heavy balls to the guy, and he literally could not hit the ball back. Okay. I'll never forget that.
Nice.
4 or 5 years later, right? I'm playing a German club match in Ingelheim, Germany. I got to play Mark Markov. He kills me the first set. And then remember what Pete said.
Yeah.
And I start hitting top spins and stuff and moving around, messing up with slice. And it became easy after that. I ended up winning that point because of Pete.
Nice.
You know? Because of Pete's. Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Well, hey, I appreciate the insight. You said the book, Love the Battle, that Pete wrote.
It's a book. Yeah, go on the website. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm not his agent, but and I'm not even. I talk to him maybe once a year. But he's really got something there. I'm a big believer in what I've seen, and I still get the daily updates and all that. But if you get a chance, get him on the horn.
I'll check it out. Well, hold on. Yeah, okay. People are calling in. They want to know if we can have part 2 with Ryan Blake, because we've got more questions to ask you.
You're going to have to go. Yeah. Well, you send that contract over to my agent, Skip.
Got it.
Skip Town. He'll handle everything.
Yeah. So we need to discuss some of the scouting and the analytics. And real quick, one question, and then I'll let you run. I know you have to go. Who's your all-time favorite band? You and I are fellow drummers. I want to know who your all-time favorite band is.
Hey, I might be selling my drum set.
Been raining too much up there?
I don't know. Yeah, I haven't been playing in a while. I don't have a favorite band per se.
Who's your favorite drummer?
Favorite drummer? Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think I would go through like Stanton Moore of Galactica. If you don't know him, of course, John Bonham and Neil Peart. God, there's just so many.
They're good. That's all right. Yeah.
But there's so many, like, as we evolve as, and first off, I'm not a drummer. I'm a percussionist. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. I don't know how you have it down there in Atlanta, but up here in Nash Vegas, we're on a belt system. So like mixed martial arts and stuff, so once you level up, you're getting your belts and stuff like that, so, you're a drummer. I'm a percussionist.
Okay.
And just to let you know, I did get my yellow belt. I just learned how to count to 4.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So it's good.
I won't quiz you about your favorite rudiment then. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. What's that?
What's that? Exactly.
You put in that spaghetti?
Or Swiss 6. That's getting up there. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So, hey, man, we will get you back, because I know the folks out there in Atlanta and Nash Vegas we'll get some more insight from Ryan Blake. So, and I want to find out seriously about the motorcycle ride for charity that you did for the Drive podcast. That sounds really amazing. So I know you have to run. Stick with me after I hang up this thing, and then we'll find out when we can talk to you again. So if you folks at home like this episode, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and notification bell, and send this episode to some friends. So till next time, make the most of your time. Hang tough.